speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. And I understand there may be a move to move several of these items onto the consent agenda tonight. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide public accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. To better serve you when possible, you'll need to notify us at least 3 business days in advance at area code 515-283-4209 should special accommodations be required. Assisted listening devices are also available for meetings in the council chambers. The Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are also broadcast live on Mediacom Cable Channel 7.1 or 7.2 for customers with that service. Do we have a quorum? Yes. We have quorum being present. Everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Any changes or conditions? Motion? Second motion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. For the minutes, we move the minutes. You weren't here. You're going to abstain. How many? All those in favor, please. Opposed? Abstain? 1, 2, 3. 3 of them. Okay. Wow. I mean, have a few, but just to have them all in one group, killer. Okay. I understand there's a motion to move some items onto consent.
1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3? You get that, Ted? All right. Is there anyone in the audience that is opposition to one of these items? In opposition to one of these items? Let me read them real quickly so everybody will know. Item number 1 is request from JAM Coffee LLC, represented by Mike Armour, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 1500 East Grand Avenue to allow development of a 450 square foot coffee restaurant with drive-up service window. Anyone here to speak on that item? In opposition? Okay. Item number 2 is a request from Greenwood Investors, represented by Daniel Kelly, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 3900 Ingersoll Avenue to allow reconstruction of the existing surface parking deck above an underground parking structure proposed for replacement of the structural system. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item? Likewise, seeing none. The last item is a request from Drake University, represented by Deborah Newsom, to rezone property located at 2700 University Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item? Like, you're here to speak in opposition, ma'am? Mm-hmm. Okay. So with the exception of number 3, 1 and 2. All right, everybody understand the motion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hands. Opposed, same sign, acclamation.
And on that, does the applicant agree to all the conditions on 1 and 2?
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
Are they here?
That's our understanding from.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
They're all here.
Okay.
Good. All right. Okay, now we're going to vote on the consent agenda. We have a motion on the consent agenda. CJ? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation again. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 3. Jason, you're presenting on this one?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the city's planning staff. Response card is being passed around. This is a response map. Aerial identifying the subject property, south side of University, Drake campus to the north, 27th Street. Photograph of the property. And then another photograph from a different direction. This property is zoned limited NPC. That zoning was put into place in 2000. At that time, the 2000 was zoned R3, and then on July 24th, the council approved a limited rezoning. There's a list of prohibitions in your staff report. I won't go through them all, but the one of note that pertains to this application is zoning condition number 16, which prohibits any business holding a liquor license for beer or wine and is not operated either as a grocery store or a pharmacy or as a restaurant. So the University Alumni Association, the university is using this as an alumni hall. They want to be able to use this for functions associated with that. And so that's the point of this rezoning, to lift that limitation. We are recommending approval. We do have some language. We do want to limit it to the function as described by Drake University. We feel that as long as it's associated with the university, that it's limited in nature, that it's appropriate use. So in the staff recommendation, we recommended approval subject to the use being an assembly reception hall used, operated solely by Drake University or its approved vendor as considered a tavern under the provisions of the zoning rights. And the part to focus on really is that reception hall use operated solely by Drake or its approved vendor. We also had some other language in there that's to clear up, to reflect the changes in the zoning ordinance with regard to terminology for limited retail or food establishments, moving away from the terms of grocery and pharmacy. So that's what A and B are speaking towards. So be happy to answer any questions.
Jason, so this is not a tavern. We're not talking about putting a tavern.
That's correct.
And that would, even if we change the zoning, that condition wouldn't happen.
What this is saying is that the use as described by them, the limitations would be altered to allow them, and Mike, you can jump in if you want. I haven't worked as closely on the liquor license regs and the changes that have been made for the terminology. The zoning ordinance we have these broad categories, and maybe I'll let Mike speak to it, that everything has to kind of fit under. So we have terminology like limited food sales and tavern, and while we have very specific images in our mind as to what those are, they kind of cover broader things from a legal sense. I don't know, Mike, if you want to.
Yeah, I think the way to look at this application is a limited tavern use of the property. So the limited tavern is a reception hall, basically.
Okay. The reason why I asked Jason, frankly, is because that's what's in one of the cars. They have some concerns about that. All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I have.
Will?
Could put back what you just yanked off the screen.
Oh, sure.
Back with
The staff rec?
Yeah. Could someone interpret this operated solely by Drake University or is it its approved vendor? Could someone consider stretching that in terms of what an approved vendor means? I mean, I think what the intent is that it would be someone that would come in for a party, and then that would be it. But how far can you stretch approved vendor? Is there something that could be said that would make it more stringent and clearer?
I think that our intent with that wording is that if they have somebody under an annual contract to operate the facility that isn't specifically a Drake employee, but is just a contractual vendor of the facility, that they could operate the reception hall on the property.
Much like their food service.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's just like their food service provider.
Well, could we put in the word contractor?
Or is approved contractor instead of vendor?
I think contracted vendor.
Slash.
One or the other.
You can make whatever recommendation you want on that. I think that was the intent, though, was that it's a
Okay.
contractual vendor of the property.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, it doesn't matter what the language is, you're trusting Drake to pick the appropriate person.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the language is. You're trusting Drake.
CJ?
My question is, does this serve as say an alumni drops into town and they can drop in to this facility and just have a drink before an event starts? Or is it specific to events that are sponsored by Drake?
It's specific events.
Very specific, you can't.
Yeah, it's not operated as like a club or a,
Okay,
right, yeah, exactly, it's an event.
Yeah, I think the way it's been described previously is that this would be, if there was a basketball game occurring that night, they could have a function at the
And the bar
facility
be
before,
open.
and drinks would be served before people would head over to a game. That was one of the things. It also could be just them hosting an event, an alumni event at the property.
there's a lot of events go on over there.
Yeah. I
So
think
it
the
could
hours are all
function
right.
as a
yeah.
bar, actually.
It has to be operated by Drake, so I don't think again, the way to look at this would be a very limited tavern as and that limitation is it's an assembly reception hall operated by Drake University.
I understand that, but my concern is maybe the neighborhood, so I'd like to hear from the neighborhood.
And I think there's some people here for that. Joanne?
I'd just kind of like to know if they're going to be modifying, especially the outside of this building, because this is a classic example of its architecture.
I don't believe any modifications are proposed, it's really about the use of the interior space.
Just use, okay. Just as long as they don't mess with it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jason. Is the applicant present and ready to come forward, please? Give us your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mark Chambers. I'm Director of Facilities for Drake University. My address in Des Moines is 3730th Street in Des Moines.
Anything you want to tell us?
And your assertions about our use for this facility are correct. It was intended, this license was intended specifically for alumni, for a pre-game event, be it basketball or football. In regards to facility, we spent a great deal of money renovating that facility for the university prior to it becoming the Alumni House. The Alumni House use was just designated this year, but we spent a lot of money renovating this house, which in its life originally served as the house for the president of the university many years ago. Since that time, it has been used for various university functions. Recently, it was the home of AGS, the American Judicature Society, which is how it became renovated to this state. They chose to move to Vanderbilt University, freeing the house up for the alumni use, which seems like a great use of this house. Parking is restricted to a parking lot that is across the street, across 27th Street from this house, and is somewhat limited.
Any questions? Will?
Some alumni houses have residential units connected with them. Will there be residential units here, or is it just strictly for an event kind of, or offices?
No, this house really doesn't have the capability for residential use anymore. There are offices on the second floor. Rooms that were former bedrooms have been converted to offices, and the house is not built or has not been renovated for that function.
Greg?
I'm just curious, will they be preparing foods here in a full commercial kitchen, or are you just bringing catered?
No, the house does not have a kitchen. It has a little refrigerator for staff to use, but it's all catered events. And you were right about the vendor. Our liquor license is actually managed by an outside vendor now, and the reason for that wording was that vendor would bring liquor in specifically for the event, for pre-game or.
Mike, just something?
And I just wanted could you clarify, will the facility be able to be rented by alumni to have a private event at
No.
the house?
No. And it actually houses the alumni offices as well, so it's the home of our alumni association.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? In favor of the application, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone here to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. Give us your name and address.
Jennifer Sayers, 1129 28th Street. I live right around the corner from this property. And I'm also on the Drake Neighborhood Association Board. I've been working on this with Bert Drost, and while we're not thrilled with the property being rezoned because of this tavern issue, we have discussed at length with the alumni people and with Bert and the neighborhood. And one of the things that I did not hear in the restriction that he said that he would like to have added was private events sponsored by Drake University or the Drake University Alumni Relations Office. And we would feel better having the word private in there, just because that would eliminate the potential for public events.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Any questions? Thank you. Please step forward, give us your name and address.
Derek Gord, 2422 Drake Park, President, Drake Neighborhood Association. I come here today sort of mixed for and against. I have to say I'm very much for Drake and our partnership with Drake. I think it's been very good for the neighborhood. And I think that this house is a beautiful renovation. The Junior Society that renovated this, they did a great job. I've been inside of it. It's been the host of our historic home tour several times. And I think Drake has been gracious with that. We met with the Alumni Association people. We think it's, again, very nice people. I think they have the best of intentions. And I think Drake property, in turning it over to the alumni, again, best of intentions. Where the neighborhood becomes concerned is that, as you guys know, when we make a zoning change, you've made it for life. So you kind of got to get everything that you're concerned about out at first. And our real concern here is this is actually a pretty busy area where we have a lot of NPC restrictions about alcohol sales. Again, if you look at the entire street, this zoning that we're talking about really is in place for much of the entire street. One of the big problems that we have is actually alcohol sales, whether it's related to the university or privately in the neighborhood. It is, again, I enjoy a good drink after, maybe before an event, so it's not that I have a problem with alcohol sales exactly, but where my concern is if we have an open, if we didn't go with the zoning restrictions as recommended by staff, or private events as we had previously talked about with some members of city staff, and it didn't make it in here, is that we open this building up to be something that's attractive because it's the only thing that could actually sell alcohol or could become a bar. And maybe the university wouldn't sell it, but we don't know. It was the Judicial Society before it was the alumni building. Drake has used it for many things over the past. Once you have a building that has a more open planning and zoning restrictions, suddenly this becomes attractive to other people. And our real concern is we want to make sure that it fills the needs of the Alumni Association. I have no problem with their needs and what they want to do. I think it's a great program. But we also want to, at the same time, not make it attractive to big public events or bar/tavern events where we could have people coming into the neighborhood to, let's say, for instance, a Drake bar that's staffed by people, for the benefit of the university. We don't know what the next president is going to do. There could be an idea to make it more profitable by hosting more events. And, that's a real concern of ours. So we really would like to see language like that it's restricted to private events or that it has to be managed by Drake or their vendors added to any of this language so that we know that it is open for the use of the alumni, but it does not become a cash flow generator for the university.
Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, you need some time for rebuttal? Mark?
Certainly not within my power to make any claims or guarantees that things won't change in the future. We've obviously owned this house for a very long time, and of course, own most of the property around it. As I had said before, and if any of you that follow the politics at Drake University, the last thing that we would ever support would be a tavern in our neighborhood. We've dealt with those issues from some of our neighbors for years, and it would be very much counter to everything that we've ever done or believed in the last few decades. I've been affiliated with the university since the 80s, but again, our intention is certainly just to provide the service to our alumni and our friends at Drake, and not to be selling liquor to the general public or to be opening it up for that kind of use.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Ted, just like,
Do you have any difficulty with the language they suggested, if that were added?
no, not at all. No, that was, more succinct with our intention anyway,
CJ?
but depending on how you define private, but.
If I could, I'd like to ask another question. This is restricted to alumni, right? And is it correct that the vendor holds the liquor license? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now,
And they're our food service vendor. That's all they do.
okay. So Drake has an extremely popular event where tickets are sold out. And there's probably an opportunity to put some big screen TVs up, and some folks could stay there and drink and watch the events on TV. And my other concern is some students graduate early, which makes them alums, and maybe they're not old enough to drink. So how is that controlled? Do you know how the vendor controls that?
Certainly, yes. They obviously always check IDs. Of course, the house is not that big anyway, and the camaraderie is limited to the first floor of this house and the associated areas. So the event in this house couldn't house more than 40 people would be a stretch, actually.
So the fire department has a zoning restriction on the maximum number of occupants at one time. Has that been cleared?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that number?
I'll have to check on that, but as I said, and you can see from the picture, it's not a very big house.
Yeah.
Is that number under 100?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
If I could, they have to comply with all building codes and fire codes for the occupancy of the building. So that's set as part of their occupancy permit. They also, as a condition of any liquor license issued by the council, have to comply with all state code on disbursement of alcohol. So they run the risk, if there's ever a violation and they're ticketed for that, of not getting a renewal of their license, just like any other vendor or any other license holder in the city. So I think it's heavily regulated on the disbursement. Right now, the way this wording reads, if Drake University chose to sell this property and somebody wanted to operate a reception hall on the property, it would be back in front of the city for a rezoning of the property. This limits it to Drake's ownership and operation. As far as limiting it to alumni, I mean, a spouse might not be an alumni and may be with their spouse at the event, so I don't know that that's really the way to regulate this.
No, I'm
So
speaking of age and drinking more than
Yeah,
that.
so I think if you want to add that it's for only private events by Drake University, so be it. I think the other things are really covered by our existing liquor regulations and licensing that the council issues. So, thank you.
Well, before we get on any farther, now I'm going to put council on the spot. What would the difference be between public events held by Drake and private events held by Drake under this particular provision?
Well, my assumption would be public events held by Drake would be open to the public. And so
Okay.
people that were not just either invitees of Drake or alumni, and they're inherently invitees, would be able to attend. If you limit it to private, that would be solely people that are invited by Drake or the alumni invited by Drake to attend.
Any other questions?
I
Will?
have a question. The house that we see on the monitor to the far, I guess it's to the south on the right, does Drake own that building?
Yes, yes, we do. It's a house that we rent to students.
Could we have the, Jason, you had an overlay map. Could you put that up? Yeah, please. Now, I see that house within the overlay. That's just for the NPC, though. That's not for this particular zoning exception, isn't that right?
That's right.
All right, thank you.
And the property, we also own the property to the south of that, which is a property that we've dedicated to the community garden. So the community, our neighbors have access to that if they'd like to garden.
If I could, one final thing. Again, just to clarify, I don't want this tavern definition or usage to be the concern in this issue. You need to understand that under our zoning code, we have limited food sales, which this is not selling food. We have limited retail sales. They're not having retail items sold. We have grocery stores. This isn't a grocery store. We have pharmacies. It's not a pharmacy. And the only other option is classification as a tavern under our code to have a liquor license. So that is why the word tavern is even in this reference. The fact is it's limited to a reception hall by Drake for private events.
Ted?
I have a question for staff that I'll bet is at the crux of the entire issue. Is there anything that prevents Drake today from serving alcohol at an event at this facility now if they didn't sell it?
I don't believe if they weren't selling alcohol, there would be anything that would prevent them from hosting.
House.
Yes.
So so money can change hands for the 40 people that are there? Is the entire crux of the rezoning for
Yes.
this?
Yeah, the reason for that is that we actually purchase the services from our vendors, so technically, our food service preventer, our contract preventer, that they feed the kids and they make popcorn at the Knapp Center, we obviously pay them for the services, hence the sale, yes.
Right, right. Any other questions, CJ?
No, yeah, I would like to make a motion for staff approval with the addition of restricted to private events.
Okay, if we could. Are you done, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
CJ?
Okay, I'll make a motion to move staff and add a provision that it be restricted to private events.
Any questions? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a discussion question, I guess. Number 16, the sentence that's there, just want to clarify that I'm understanding this right. It's for, okay, since the word not appears, the word either was bothering me because it's these three options. It made me think that the third option, having Drake operate this, was one of the options, and that A or B could also be an option, or is that not, am I not reading that correct?
Oh, you're looking at 16 itself. Any business holding a liquor
Right.
license, beer or wine permit, which is not operated as either?
A and B are just meant to clarify existing language and
The Part B says that it would prohibit the following uses. So it says any other use other than those three items.
So it's saying it is approving of A and B. Is that correct?
yeah,
Is it
what you-
approving of A, B, or C, either?
Yeah.
And so-
The existing zoning conditions that are in place today are these right here, which allow those two
Okay, and this is what we're
others.
getting rid of.
Right.
You're
It's-
keeping those two and you're adding the ability to have a reception hall on the property.
I just want to make sure
Yep.
I'm understanding this
Yep.
properly.
Yep.
Because you're saying that it's limited solely by Drake, which is option C. But, so A and B would not remain and still be options if we change this?
No, A and B would still,
Okay,
Yes.
so they
Yes.
don't say that they're limited to Drake, A and B don't?
it's exact same what's allowed on the property today.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're keeping that?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Christine's the only opposition. Got it? Okay. Thank you. It passes.
11-1.
Director's report.
Just one item. I wanted to let you know that the RFP, request for proposals for the project management function for the comp plan and zoning code update was issued this week. Proposals are going to be due back July 2nd. If anyone has interest in that for the general public, it will be published in the paper also, but they will need to contact our purchasing department for information on that issuance. So hopefully we'll be able to report back to you in the very near future of how we're proceeding with that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? We're adjourned.
So all we were doing was adding.
It would have been a better job if I'd done it in 15 minutes.
And we already existed, we're just adding.
Here we are again. Haven't seen you around in a while. Where have you been? New look, you found your style. Make you realize if you open your eyes, you can change your view. Walk a city block in these shoes. Something